found it by accident. Her phone buzzing on the kitchen counter at 2:13 a.m., lighting up the dark like it had something to confess. One message. One sentence. And suddenly, the quiet life I thought I had cracked open. Before we go any further, take a second, like the video if you've ever trusted someone completely, subscribe if you believe real stories matter, and tell me in the comments if you think some truths are better left hidden. My name is Daniel. I'm 34, married for 6 years, and until that night, I believed my life was simple in a tired, manageable way. We lived in a small rented house on the edge of town. Thin walls, old pipes that rattled when it got cold. I worked long shifts at a logistics warehouse, back aching, mind numb, just to keep us floating. No savings, credit card debt, constant mental math. Emily worked part-time at a salon. We weren't unhappy exactly, just worn down. Conversations turned practical. Dreams got postponed. I told myself this was adulthood, responsibility, love surviving on routine. But that night, standing barefoot on the cold tile floor, staring at her phone, I felt something shift inside me. A tightness in my chest. A quiet fear. Because the message wasn't angry. Or drunk. It was calm. And calm can be terrifying. I didn't open the message right away. That's the part people don't understand. Fear can freeze you in place. I just stood there, phone glowing in my hand, listening to the low hum of the refrigerator and the soft sound of Emily breathing from the bedroom. Every normal sound suddenly felt loud, accusing. When I finally read it, my stomach dropped. It wasn't explicit. No flirting. Just a confession to a friend. Sometimes I wish I could have one night with him again. Just to know if I really moved on. Her ex. A name I hadn't heard in years. I sat on the couch until the cushions went cold beneath me. My mind started racing, filling in gaps it had no right to fill. Was I not enough? Had I ever been? I replayed every argument, every quiet dinner, every time I came home too tired to talk. At work the next day, I dropped a pallet because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. My supervisor yelled. I nodded and apologized, swallowing the humiliation. All day, I kept hearing that sentence in my head. One night, that evening, Emily talked about her day like nothing was wrong. I nodded, smiled when expected, and felt like a stranger in my own life. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I didn't know how. I went to bed beside her, staring at the ceiling, wondering how something so small could feel so heavy. The days after that felt stretched thin, like time itself was exhausted. I started noticing things I'd never questioned before. Emily guarding her phone. The way she smiled at messages and then tucked the screen away when I walked in. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was everything. My mind kept swinging between denial and dread. I stopped sleeping. At night, the house felt louder, the ticking clock, the wind pushing against the loose window frame, my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I'd lie there, staring at the faint crack in the ceiling, asking myself what kind of husband I'd become. When did I turn into someone she might escape from, even in her thoughts? At work, I messed up inventory counts twice in 1 week. That had never happened before. My coworkers noticed. One of them joked, "You look like hell, man." I laughed it off, but inside I felt exposed, like everyone could see the mess I was hiding. Money made everything worse. The rent reminder sat unread in my email. Our car needed repairs we couldn't afford. I kept telling myself I should be stronger, more confident, more something. But every mirror reflected the same tired man, shoulders slumped, eyes dull. Emily asked me one night if something was wrong. I almost told her. The words rose up, burning my throat. But fear won. I said I was just stressed about work. She nodded, relieved. And that hurt more than I expected. The distance between us grew quietly, like mold in a damp room, slow, invisible, but impossible to ignore once you knew it was there. We still shared meals, still talked about bills and schedules, but the warmth was gone. Our laughter felt rehearsed. One evening, while folding laundry, I found an old photo tucked into a book on her nightstand. Emily, younger, brighter. Her ex beside her, arm wrapped around her waist. It wasn't hidden carefully. That somehow made it worse. My chest tightened as if I'd been punched from the inside. I wanted to confront her right then. Instead, I folded the shirt in my hands again and again until the fabric wrinkled. My thoughts turned cruel. He was better. More exciting. Less tired. I hated myself for thinking that way, but I couldn't stop. That night, she fell asleep before me. I lay awake, listening to the rain hit the roof, each drop feeling like a countdown. I imagined futures I didn't want. Lawyers. Empty rooms. Starting over in my 30s with nothing but debt and regret. The shame was overwhelming. I hadn't failed yet, but it felt inevitable. Like I was already standing at the edge of something broken, just waiting for the final push. I finally broke in a way that didn't look dramatic from the outside. It happened over something stupid, an overdraft fee. $27 we didn't have. I stared at the bank app, thumb hovering over the screen, feeling smaller than I ever had. That night, I asked Emily if we could talk. My voice sounded calm, but my hands were shaking. She sighed first, like she was already tired. That sigh cut deeper than anger ever could. I told her I felt distant from her. Not accused. Not angry. Just scared. She went quiet, staring at the wall instead of me. The silence stretched until it felt unbearable. She said she didn't know who she was anymore. That life felt heavy. That sometimes she missed feeling wanted without effort. I waited for reassurance that never came. She never mentioned the message. I didn't mention it either. We danced around the truth like it might explode if named. After that, I started eating lunch alone at work. I stopped joking with coworkers. I came home later, sat in the car longer before going inside. The house felt colder, even when the heat was on. I kept telling myself to hold it together. Be patient. Be understanding. But inside, something was eroding. My confidence, my sense of place. I felt like a guest in my own marriage, afraid that one wrong word would get me thrown out. The lowest point came on a Tuesday night. No argument. No shouting. Just exhaustion piled on exhaustion. Emily told me she was going out with a friend after work. I said okay. Too quickly. Like I didn't have the right to ask questions anymore. I sat alone at the kitchen table, the overhead light buzzing faintly, eating reheated leftovers that tasted like nothing. Every sound outside made me check the clock. Every passing minute fed the same dark thought, what if tonight is the night? I hated myself for thinking it, for imagining her choosing someone else while I waited in silence. But fear doesn't care about fairness. When she came home late, she smelled like cold air and unfamiliar perfume. She looked tired, but peaceful. That contrast broke something in me. I went to the bathroom and stared at my reflection, gripping the sink so hard my knuckles went white. I barely recognized the man looking back. He looked defeated, replaceable, invisible. I slept on the couch that night, wrapped in a thin blanket, listening to the house settle and creak. Somewhere between midnight and morning, I realized I wasn't just afraid of losing her. I was afraid of how little of myself would be left if I did. By the end of that week, I felt hollowed out. Not angry, not dramatic, just tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. I went through the motions. Work, eat, nod, exist, but everything felt muted, like life was happening behind thick glass. One night, I sat alone in the dark living room after Emily went to bed. No TV, no phone, just the faint streetlights spilling through the blinds. My chest felt tight, but there were no tears left. I'd cried them out already, silently, in places no one could see. That's when it hit me, not like motivation, not like courage, but like a quiet truth I couldn't ignore anymore. I couldn't keep living in this suspended fear, waiting, guessing, shrinking myself just to keep things calm. I wasn't thinking about saving the marriage, or ending it. I was thinking about survival, about how close I felt to disappearing inside my own life. The realization scared me, because it meant something had to change, and I had no idea what that change looked like. I doubted every instinct I had. What if I made things worse? What if speaking up pushed her away for good? I sat there until my back ached and the house went completely still. No answers came, just the understanding that staying silent wasn't protecting me anymore. It was breaking me, slowly, quietly, completely. The decision didn't come with confidence. It came with fear and a strange sense of calm underneath it. The next morning, I woke up knowing I couldn't avoid the truth any longer, even if it hurt. I didn't confront Emily right away. I spent the day preparing myself mentally, like bracing for a storm you know is coming. At work, I barely spoke. I rehearsed sentences in my head, discarded them, started over. Every version sounded weak or accusatory or desperate. That evening, I asked her if we could talk, really talk. No distractions. No phones. She looked nervous, which told me more than any words could have. I told her what I'd seen. Not angrily. Not accusing. Just honestly. I admitted how small and uncertain I'd felt. How scared I was of losing her and of losing myself. My voice shook. I let it. She didn't respond right away. She stared at the floor, hands clasped tightly, like she was holding something together inside her. I knew this conversation could end everything. Or change it. Or leave us in an even more uncertain place. But for the first time in months, I wasn't running from the fear. I was standing inside it, waiting to see what would happen next. What followed wasn't dramatic. No shouting. No tears at first. Just long pauses and careful words. Emily admitted the thought had crossed her mind during a period when she felt lost, unattractive, and stuck. She said it wasn't about wanting him back. It was about wanting to feel seen without trying so hard. That didn't erase the pain, but it gave it shape. We agreed to slow everything down. No sudden decisions. No pretending everything was fine either. I suggested counseling, knowing we barely had the money for it. She hesitated, then agreed to try at least once. That felt like a fragile win. The next weeks were hard. Uncomfortable conversations replaced silence. Some nights ended with frustration instead of clarity. At work, I picked up extra shifts, exhausted but focused, because drifting wasn't an option anymore. There were setbacks. Days when she pulled away again. Nights when doubt came rushing back. But there were also small changes, shared walks after dinner, honest check-ins, moments where she reached for my hand first. Nothing felt fixed, but something was moving. I was learning how to speak without accusing, how to listen without disappearing. Progress wasn't dramatic. It was slow, uneven, and fragile. Still, for the first time in a long while, I wasn't just waiting for things to fall apart. I was actively choosing to face them. We didn't magically become a perfect couple. That's not real life. But we became more honest. Counseling helped us name things we'd both been avoiding: resentment, fear, unspoken expectations. Some sessions were quiet. Some were brutal. All of them mattered. Emily admitted she hadn't wanted a night with her ex as much as she'd wanted escape. From pressure, from routine, from feeling like she was slowly fading. Hearing that didn't erase the hurt, but it made it human. I learned something uncomfortable too. Avoiding conflict doesn't protect love. It slowly stars it. Standing up for myself didn't push her away the way I feared. It reminded both of us that I was still here. Life is still tight financially. The house is the same. The future is uncertain. But the silence is gone. We talk now, even when it's hard. The biggest change wasn't in our marriage. It was in me. I stopped measuring my worth by how replaceable I felt. I stopped shrinking to keep the peace. If there's one lesson I'd leave you with, it's this. Fear grows in silence, but honesty gives you a chance. No guarantees, just a chance. If this story felt real to you, subscribe for more lived-in stories like this. And tell me in the comments, what truth were you afraid to face?